Okay. Voices off, please. Voices off, please. Okay. So, 5.4. A midsegment. A midsegment, as the name says, is a segment. Voices off, please. It's a segment that connects the midpoints of two sides of a triangle. Does that kind of make sense that a midsegment would be a segment that connects midpoints? Segment, midsegment. I think that one should be hopefully our easiest one to remember, okay? I think of ours that we've learned, we have a lot of terms, I think that one's probably going to be our easiest one to remember. Okay. Hey, you guys don't want to do the construction, do you?
No.
Well, if you do, too bad. You can come in later, we can do it if you want.
I want to do Bob Builder.
Okay? No. No credit. Aubrey, you love my stance on extra credit. So, triangle midsegment here. We have a theorem for all these. The segment joining the midpoints of two sides of a triangle. The segment joining the midpoints of two sides of a triangle. Didn't we just name the segment joining the midpoints of two sides of a triangle? What did we just name it? The midsegment. So that's really just a really long way of saying midsegment. The midsegment is parallel to the third side and half its length and half the length of that side. So the midsegment is going to be parallel to the third side and half the length of that side. Yes, well, I'll walk through on this one. So on this triangle right here, we have D is the midpoint of AC, isn't it? We can tell because of those dashes there. And E, is that the midpoint of CB? Yeah. And so DE, segment DE, would be our midsegment, right? Okay, so let's just go and write segment DE is our midsegment, just so we know. We're going to work on identifying that. Now this theorem is saying that since it joins the two midpoints of two sides, it's parallel to the third side. What's the side that segment DE doesn't interact with? AB. So what we're saying is that segment DE is parallel to segment AB. What's parallel mean? They never ever intersect. How do we mark parallel? Not dashes. Arrows. Arrows. We mark arrows. Okay? And we also said it's half the length. So if we just give some sort of arbitrary length to AB to be x, what's DE going to measure out at? X over 2. It'd just be half of it. So if we called DEX instead, what would AB have been? If we had called DEX, this would have been 2x. It would have been double it. Okay, so the actual side of the triangle is double the midsegment. Midsegment is half of it. Okay, they can go either way. Questions on that idea? Okay, you guys ready to dive in and use it?
No.
Yeah.
Woo! Let's do it anyway.
I prefer not to die in February.
All right. So, that was pretty good. Right? It's okay.
I give it a 4.
Out of 10?
I don't know.
Out of 4.
No. That's probably only like 1% of your power. So given triangle ABC, that's this big triangle, right? Like we have all these other triangles in here. Kind of looks like a triforce from Legend of Zelda if you're a nerd like me. Let's just say this big triangle ABC. It has midpoints X, Y, and Z. How can we mark X, Y, and Z to be midpoints of this big triangle?
It's a mid-segment.
Like if X is the midpoint of AB, you'd put a dash here and a dash here.
That's what I was trying to say.
If Y is the midpoint of AC, how many dashes would we put between A and Y? 2. Why not 1?
Because it doesn't be parallel to A.
Might not be congruent to the other side. And what would go between Y and C? 2 marks. about this bottom side?
3 marks.
3 and 3. So it might be nice for us to mark it. Now, if these are all midpoints, then what's that make XY?
Mid-segment.
A mid-segment, because it connects two midpoints. It's a segment that connects two midpoints. So segment XY is going to be parallel to what segment?
BC.
Segment BC, that side, that third side. Now, if segment XY has a measure of 5, what's BC have to be?
10.
10. So if this whole thing is 10 here, what's that mean this little part is? 5, right? Because it's half of it. So what's that mean this is? 5. So does this also get 3 marks? Because this is half of the whole thing, and this is also half of that side. So how many marks could I put on XZ? 2, because it's going to be congruent to either of these halves, right? How many marks could I put on YZ? 1.
Wait, why is XZ
Why is XZ congruent to YC and AY? Well, XZ is going to be half of this, right? Because is XZ also a mid-segment? Yeah, and it's also going to be parallel to this. And it's going to be half the length, which is 2 tick marks in this case. Is YZ also a mid-segment? Yeah, we have 3 mid-segments. You bet it is. So this one would get how many tick marks? 1. That's a lot of lines, right? Okay. But this helps us to prepare for our next one. If AC is 30, if this whole thing is 30 here, thanks. Let's go. So if this whole thing is 30, I'm trying to have some orthotics in them, and like, so it's making my feet a little bit uncomfortable, but it's supposed to be better for me in the long run. So you know, these orthotics, it's like postural correctives in your shoe, like inserts. Kind of like a gel insert, but not just for comfort, but actually like kind of like fix the way you walk and stuff. Cause like, why do you walk weird? Yeah. Like I like go like too much inside more than you should, or outside, one of the two. But this fixes kind of you can walk weird. So it helps you walk a little.
A lot of linemen
Yeah.
have their heels.
Yeah. So if you like walk like this, you like this just naturally. So anyway, if AC is 30, what would XZ be? I want you to figure out what XZ would be. 15. XZ would be 15. I knew it. Okay, I want you guys to start working on example 19. I want you to start working on example 19 by yourself.
He got busted by the
Whose water bottle is that, Evan?
Well, good thing Mr. Costa was
For
mine.
sure?
Pretty sure that's Kayla's. No, I'm pretty sure it's Adrian's.
I'm used to it by now. Hey, can
I
I
used to
use it
it by
back
now.
now? Adrian, is that yours?
I am taking your water.
Toss it. She's a water bottle shop.
Purposes of California. Dude, imagine like not having.
What? Is he dead? Adrian, my head hurts.
That sounds like a you problem, Kayla.
It does.
Sounds like your head.
I have a question. Adrian, why is this thing broken? Did you choose on it? Because.
Yeah.
Literally what it happened. You took it.
Oh, that's like all the way back to the wall.
You.
Okay.
You have to bite on it and then
Does anybody think they have it?
no.
Floor?
Yeah. I think I know how to set it up, I just don't have it.
Did you say I think I know how to set it up?
Yeah.
Oh wait, Mr. Castle.
Wait.
Mr. Castle, I have an idea.
Wait.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
I got
What's your idea, Aubrey?
So it's a YZ and it's parallel to AB. So that means
Okay,
half of it.
YZ is parallel to AB.
So that means half of it.
So it's half of it. So if
Yeah.
this is 1 tick mark, these both
Yeah.
be 1 tick mark.
Yeah.
So could you double YZ and instead of equal.
Oh, we could double YZ
I was right.
instead of equal.
Double something else.
Yeah.
What did you double?
I forgot to double A.
Oh.
Yeah.
So we could double this, because if YZ is 3x minus 8, then each of these are 3x minus 8. But the whole thing's 5x plus 10. Questions on how we set that up? It's a very important concept. So if we miss it now, we need to recapture it right now of how to do it. Josie.
Alright, re-explain.
Awesome. So, Aubrey's saying, we already know that these are midpoints x, y, and z, right?
Yes.
So, we know that this is a mid-segment.
Okay.
We know we're looking at YZ because it says YZ and AB, right? So that's what we know we're going to focus on.
Okay.
Okay. So YZ is parallel to BA and half its length. So if this whole thing, we're told is 5x plus 10,
Alright.
okay? Alright. YZ, we're told, is this 3x minus 8. This is half the length of this, right? So that means if we double this, would we get this?
Yeah.
Because if this is half,
Then yeah.
that means this is twice that.
Yes.
So we take
Oh.
this, double it,
Okay.
and it equals that.
Alright.
Make sense?
Yeah.
So from here, you distribute the 2.
Yeah.
Distribute that 2, and we get this. From here, you continue to solve. How would we solve?
Chat.
Okay, we're already subtracting 5x and adding 16.
It would be 26, then divided by that by 2, and that would be 13. So y is
No.
X equals 26. And what do we need to find? YZ?
Plug into Y.
Plug it into YZ.
Why would you?
But don't you have to
Yeah,
divide it by 2?
No.
Because we found our
We already
X.
doubled it, so this is
No,
gonna
like
equal.
what I mean, but do you have to plug it into the 2?
No, because we're finding our normal YZ, so we have to plug it into normal YZ.
But then it's like, it's the double the X.
X doesn't change.
Okay. So we plug this back into YZ to find the value of YZ plus U plus range on F unless we forget it. So 3 times 26 minus 8. 78 minus 8, and this is 70.
Oh, keep your math right, guys.
Could we have plugged it into AB? Could we have plugged X into AB?
No.
If you divide
I heard a no and a yes. Kaylee has a quantifier out there. Yeah.
If I divided it by 2.
If we found this, plugged in here, we'd have to divide it by 2. Because this, half of this is this. So we can plug it in here, we'd get 140 and divide by 2. So, answer is 70. Hey, questions on that one and how we got that?
No, I'm digging this lesson though. I dig this lesson though.
Okay.
No, I don't want to do this.
He has-
This is difficult. The graph stuff is hard.
Huh? We're gonna do it anyway.
Okay.
I hate
Okay?
Last page of the
Switch
class
classes.
act.
I dare you.
That really
I
debates
literally
that
called you
second
out on
part.
that so many times for a semester.
What do you?
Well, I can't because now it's the second semester and
Am I-
That sounds like a you problem. Remember, you struggled.
I'd have a day.
don't remind him. I was hoping he would forget.
No one.
Hey, example 20.
Yes, good.
Okay. Example 20. Given triangle OPQ with these points, find the coordinates of each midsegment. We need to find the coordinates of each midsegment. If we're finding midsegments, that means we need to find midpoints. Hey, what would we have done if these already weren't plotted for us? We would plot them, right? That'd be our first step. Okay.
No, I would make.
So here, does it guide us in what we need to do? We need to find the midpoint of PO. How could we find the midpoint of PO?
Math.
Math,
Geometry.
Equation.
equation, and equation. Okay. What math could we do?
Midpoint math.
Midpoint.
Midpoint geometry.
You do. Hey,
The X.
You do.
Then the Y.
So, midpoint. The midpoint will be x plus x divided by 2. Guys, and the y value will be y plus y divided by 2. You find the average of the x's and the average of the y's. So we'll take the x's. So midpoint of PO, we'll take the extra PO, which is of P, and the extra O and add them together. So that's negative 10. I'm going to move it further left. Negative 10 plus 7 divided by 2. Now we do the y's of P and O. 5 plus 2 divided by 2. What is negative 10 plus 7? Negative 3. Y plus 2 is...
Bless you.
Oh, Lord, bless you, must ring that up unless we forget. Well, it's negative 3 over 2. Negative 1.5. It's not too terrible. What's 7 over 2? 3.5. That's that midpoint. So we're done finding the midpoint of this one. Let's find the midpoint of OQ. So for the midpoint of OQ, what would be our x's? What plus what? Negative 2 plus 7. The x from Q and the x from O. Negative 2 plus 7 divided by 2. What about the y's for this one? Negative 4 plus 2. Does it matter which order we add them in? If we did negative 2 plus 7 or 7 plus negative 2? No, it doesn't matter. We can add them in either order. So we continue this math. We get 5 divided by 2, comma, negative 2 divided by 2.
Negative 1.
Y is a negative 1, and what's the x? 2.5. Questions before we continue on to this third one? Okay. So let's find the midpoint of this one.
Change the color.
Oh, I already did.
Oh.
It's for different midpoints. It's different parts of the problem.
I
This isn't like aggressive color
I
change
feel
like
like
Jacob
drawing.
is.
Jacob doesn't.
I like the color coding and satisfying.
See?
Exactly. It
Some
helps.
people
Kaylee
like
said
it.
so. If Kaylee said so, I mean,
Kaylee
Same.
used to sit right here and
She
Jacob
grew
would
up
give her a
before.
hard
She's
time.
finally grew up.
right,
I'm
Kaylee?
wild.
I wild.
I know.
Questions on this one?
I didn't even get a chance to do it. You're already asking me for questions.
Yeah, well, I was
That was
being
just
wild
red
today.
No, that was me.
oh,
Right now.
That hurts.
It's gonna be a fun day when I catch that.
What was the bet again?
I will die.
That was the bet. You can't whine about anything that day.
No, I just said his dad jokes.
Which is most of what she went about anyway.
Yeah,
And
no, we
it's
have that on
about you.
recording.
Kaylee's confused on why.
Kaylee.
Where did you see that?
On
Where did the
GQ?
other Kaylee go? Like, I'm
On
saying.
GQ?
Yeah.
Alright, hey, Kayla had a question on the midpoint of PQ. So we take the x from P and the x from Q. Negative 10 plus negative 2 divided by 2. Take the y's, 5 plus negative 4 divided by 2. Does that make sense? Yeah.
yeah.
Negative 10 plus negative 2 is negative 12.
I see. Okay.
Negative 4 plus 5 is 1. Negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6. 1 over 2 is 0.5. Now, did we find the coordinates of the endpoints of each midsegment? What are the endpoints of the midsegment? They're the midpoints, aren't they? So we did just find the coordinates. These three are the coordinates. You could plot them. You could plot them. They make another triangle. That's true. Hey, could we have also found the midpoints on this graph? We could count how big of a difference there is x, y from here, and know there's a 3 difference. So it should be a 1.5 difference, or 1.5 comma. So we could have. That'd be a little bit of a mess. do it. It'd be a bit of a mess.
Who's a bit of a mess?
Bit of a mess.
You sound British.
Questions on that one, guys?
Well, good thing I'm not.
I know.
I know, I'm good for that.
Okay.
Reading is
Alright. On 21, this is gonna be our last one on these notes, right? We're done with the stack of notes after this. Two. Stack.
Oh, I turned off.
Okay. Everybody can listen up, please. Given triangle JKL with the points JK and L, I'm not gonna read those points. Show the midsegment. Show that midsegment MN is parallel to JK in half its length. Now we're told in parentheses, hey, M's gonna be the midpoint of JL and N's the midpoint of KL. Because MN kind of came out of nowhere, so it's explaining where they are. So this walks us through our steps we need to do. What's it say one of the first steps is? Midpoint of JL. You need to find the midpoint of JL. So, how would we find the midpoint of JL? Same thing we did last time, right? We add the x's together, divide by 2, add the y's together, divide by 2. So -2 plus 6 divided by 2 for the x's, and for the y's, 3 plus -1 divided by 2. And we simplify. What do we get our midpoint to be about? 2, 1. Okay. As you're working through these, it might be beneficial for you to put a star by that midpoint because you have a lot of work here. We don't want to circle it because it's not our final answer. So it might be helpful to put a star by it. I'm happy you like stars.
I have to like whatever you just said.
Yeah, why is it that? Why is it that?
You guys come to me.
It's worth it.
The walk of come to me. 15 seconds.
I go with the rest of it.
You might really Alright, so we found M, which is the midpoint of JL. So we could go over here, graph it at 2, 1, and we found M here. Now we need to find N, which is the midpoint of KL. So midpoint of KL, we use the points for K and L. If we look at this graph, we know that K and L are 2 points apart for X, Y, so it's going to be 1 point apart on the X, Y. So 1 unit apart.
You graph it on 2.
Oh. Excuse me. There we go. There we go. Fixed it. So you can figure out either mathematically or say, hey, the K to L goes left and right 2 units. So 1 unit would be the middle of that. KL goes up and down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units. So 3 units from either would be half of that, making this a point of 5, 2. You could also do it mathematically and get the same thing. If you're more comfortable doing it mathematically, go ahead and do it mathematically. You might have already done it. And I recommend putting another star by that and labeling this as point N. So we're now supposed to show, well, we could connect these points and make our midsegment. We could connect those points and make our midsegment, MN. Now we know they need to be parallel. What do we know about parallel lines? What do we know about their slopes? They're the same. Perpendicular opposite reciprocal parallel are the same. But they have to rise and run the same to never intersect. So we need to find the slopes of these so that way we can show they're parallel. That's how we show they're parallel, by showing that their slopes are the same. So what's the slope of J to K? Okay, it ends up being 2/6, which simplifies, as you guys already said, to 1/3.
So slope of M and
Okay, recommend putting a star next to this one as well. And we need to find the slope of MN. Yes, this was the 2/6. Because it goes up 2 for every 6 it goes over.
Okay.
The slope of MN is 1/3 without any simplification. Pause there to make sure we're all at the same point here. Okay, so are these lines, is the midsegment parallel to that side, the third side JK? Yeah, how do we know it? Same slope. Okay, that's gonna be important here in a minute. Now we need to find their lengths. How do we find the length of something? Okay, we can use distance formula, but that's a long thing. We can also use a variation of the Pythagorean theorem.
But it's not a-
If we're finding the length of MN, let's look at this, guys.
Forgot.
Look at this. We can make this into a right triangle. We can make that into a right triangle to find the distance. We've done this distance before. What's the length of one of these sides?
One.
1. What's the length of this other side?
3
Three.
sides.
And then this is our unknown. In a Pythagorean theorem, you do a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, where c is the hypotenuse across the right angle. This length we want is c, the right angle, the hypotenuse. What we do mathematically here is we replace a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, where a could be 1 or 3, and we square that. B, I should have put a plus there. It's okay. We square the b, which is 3, and we say we don't know what c squared is. So we go through, we follow PEMDAS, and we're told to do exponents first. 1 squared is 1, because it's times itself. What's 3 times 3? 9? And c squared is just going to be c squared for now. Now we add, 1 plus 9 is 10. Now how do we undo this square if we want to get c by itself? Square root it. Very good. So the square root of 10 is equal to c. Or you could say that c is approximately, give me a decimal, let's go 2 decimal places. 2 decimal places. Approximately 3.16. You could type it into a triangle. I'll show you it later, okay? So then we could also, yeah, Tyler.
So we could either do the square root of 10 equals c or just c is approximately that.
Yes.
Draw that
Okay.
one too?
I recommend changing it to this one though, the approximately, and we'll see why in a moment. So now we need, and yes, star that one too.
I'd have to put that in the calculator.
Someone asked if we star that
then
one
you
too.
have to double it to do the length.
Because then we have to make sure that it's half of JK, or double would be JK. So we have to find the length of JK. So JK, we can do the Pythagorean theorem again. We can go up and to the right. We go up how many? 2 to the right how many? 6. And we can use this as our Pythagorean theorem again. To where we make 2 squared plus 6 squared is equal to c squared.
Everyone in this class.
Just shed a tear of happiness.
I'm about to.
I am not.
That's why.
There
we go, boys.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. You didn't do it. Nice to meet you.
Oh, I
did not.
I like God.
I'm ready to go.
You did it?
Is that
I'm
one
gonna throw
okay?
you in, Aubrey, I'm gonna throw you into the lake like Pedro that turtle is. I'm gonna throw you.
Are you okay?
Got to the point where I almost started doing it to people I don't even like.
Alright, so, do we understand how I got 4 and 36? 2 and 6 were our lengths there. We square both in our Pythagorean theorem. We add them together now following PEMDAS. 40 is equal to c squared. We want c by itself, so what do we do? Square root it. So the square root of 40
6.32.
is equal to c exactly, or c is approximately 6.32. Hey, is 6.32 double 3.16?
Yes.
Yeah, you can put that in your calculator to figure it out. Now, would we know that necessarily if we look at the square root of 10 and square root of 40?
No.
It might be a little tougher to realize. Okay, so it's a little bit easier for us when we write the approximation. Show. Excuse me. So when it says to show that it's parallel and half its length, it might ask you on a test, hint, hint. It might ask you on a test to explain how you know they're parallel and half the length. It might ask you on a test to show whether how you know it's parallel and half length. So how do you know it's parallel? How do you know they're parallel? The slopes are the same. How do you know it's half length? Well, you can say, well, 3.16 times 2 is 6.32. Okay. Questions on that?
Is that it?
Okay.
Yeah, homework.
The bears poop in the
You
woods.
still give us homework?
No, they do cakes. You suck.
They poop in the woods though.
Mr. Davis made a picture of that in biology.
Bears pooping in the woods.
Yeah. It's literally.
No one's worse than grown dogs.
Owen is going to be so. Rip Mr. Classes. Oh, sorry. Classes for the week.
I would say I would say
Yeah.
Okay. So this don't do is very simple for me.
Is there a lot?
No, there's only one.
There's no crowd.
This is really a class.
There's a whole
You
bunch
bet
of
you it's double-sided just for you.
What?
You just make
That-
one
that's
set of
not
homework that is like single-sided and
Yeah, I'd
one
rather have
special
two
double-sided.
Don't do number 9.
Stop. 9?
You're offending Yannick when you say that.
I'm what?
Offending Yannick.
Well, I'm targeting
Also me,
Paul.
'cause I'm a Jew.
My own kind get offended.
I love
To be fair, 9 literally just means no in German. So I'm just saying something German.
You're saying it
It's
Hitler's
no more
voice.
offensive than like actually just saying like hola.
That's great.
What?
Jot it.
We're gonna go sledding. I'm gonna wear some.
So guys, we only got a couple minutes left in class. Enjoy your weekend, okay?
I'm not
Enjoy your
gonna enjoy
weekend.
my weekend because you have
I'm not gonna please write a heartfelt message on the board.
Sure, as long as it's appropriate, but I'll erase it.
I didn't do it.